This is Calm AF, a podcast for humans who are hard on themselves. A podcast for the overthinkers, people pleasers, perfectionists, and overachievers. I'm Kristen Finch, and I'm going to teach you how to quiet that incessant negative chatter in your head. Because you know what a person with a calm mind can do? Anything they want. Grab your coffee, gorgeous soul, because today's the day you get Calm AF. Hello, gorgeous souls. So before I dive into today's episode, I want to remind you that Calm AF Life, which is my new lifetime program, enrollment begins next Friday, November 25th, the day after Thanksgiving here in the US. If you join me in the first 3 days of enrollment, you will get in at the OG member promotion. Okay. And what that means is you're going to get a bunch of amazing bonuses for signing up in those first 3 days. You're going to get access to the accountability part of the program, which is the daily, weekly, monthly accountability piece, beginning December 1st, a full month early. And you will get to come to the Future Self Workshop, which will be in December, and the everybody's favorite Resolutions Workshop, where I will be teaching you how to set goals that actually matter to you and teach you how to actually achieve them this year. So if you've never done the goal setting with me in real time, it's worth the price of admission alone. It is not like other people's goals. These aren't going to make you feel like you're hustling all the time. It's like my favorite thing is to teach people how to set goals in a way that actually feels good. The other thing the OG member promotion includes is a significant promotional price. And I can promise you this is the lowest the program will ever be. And here's what I want to share very quickly about the program. I just got off a call with my team about this program as we're getting everything set up. It is truly like we are all giddy about it. It is a culmination of everything I have learned from my students, from my clients, and my own transformation over the last 20 plus years. And as I already mentioned, there's 2 parts to this program. There's the foundation, which is a course that will teach you in a deep way. You will go into depth the things you need to know to create the foundation for the Calm AF life. So how to regulate your nervous system, how to rewire your thoughts, how to stop numbing out or giving up or shutting down, how to have external boundaries and energetic boundaries, right? All of this is in there. They're all their own modules, how to stop energy managing, people pleasing, overthinking, all of it. And it's all in one course that you can come back to over and over and over again forever. Like when you're 90, if you want to refresh your boundaries, it's still there for you. The second part is the accountability part of Calm AF Life. And this is what I've created so that you don't give up this time. Okay. As the person who always gave up, this is what I know works. You will get daily, weekly, monthly reminders of who you are becoming and what you're working on manifesting and changing and enhancing in your life. I have been thinking about creating a program like this forever. I don't think there's anything else like this out there. And here's the key difference. Here's why I think it's different than everything else. And I promise you, you're going to see more of these coming up because of this program. But that's a different story for a different day. Here's what's the biggest difference between what I'm creating and what is already out there. This is not a group coaching program. Okay, this is not like you show up and every week we have these things. This is not what this is. Yes, there's plenty of opportunities for coaching. There are coaching calls, but this is not what the group just is. It's also not just an accountability program. Again, tons of accountability support available, but it's not what the whole thing is. Calm AF Life is truly a place for you to exhale. A place for you to practice being in the vibration of Calm AF energy, a place to get what you want and get out, or come and hang out with some coffee and just be with other humans who are also looking to become their, this version of themselves that they really are underneath all the layers. This isn't a place to show up and work on yourself. Okay. It's a place where you show up and love on yourself. because that is how actual lasting transformation happens. It's not by being hard on yourself and working really hard and striving and hustling. It's when you love yourself. And you're just going to have to trust me there. Whether you are brand new to my work or you have been a student or a client or consumer of my message for a minute, this is for you. I have thought about every stage of the journey. I have created a place where there are no levels. There's no hierarchy. Everyone, whether you have been with me for 10 years, 5 years, or 5 minutes, you will love this program because I created it for you. And the vibe I think of it as is like this cozy lounge. Shout out to my OGs in the lounge, where there's comfy couches with the softest blankets, the best music playing in the background, because always the best music, and just lots of love and laughter and joy and connection. Hey, this is what Calm AF life is. And you are invited. The link to get on the interest list is in the show notes. And seriously, I think make arrangements to sign up for the program during those first 3 OG member days during that promotional time, because honestly, the bonuses themselves are actually valued at more than the price of the program with that OG discount, and even without the OG discount. So for real, I love you so much. I'm so excited to share this with you. It's the work of my life, the love of my life. All right, let's get on to today's message. Today, part 4 of this Calm AF Forever series, we're talking about your thoughts. I'm going to teach you the rewire process, the literal steps of how to actually rewire your thoughts for good, for real, for life. This is part 4 of the series, and I very intentionally waited until the 4th part to talk about mindset, and here's why. Because mindset is what people think matters the most. They think that's the sexy part, right? Change your thoughts, change your life. Your thoughts create your reality. Both true. If the thoughts you're thinking are, I'm never going to be able to figure this out, that is the reality you are creating because that's what you're believing. However, there are steps you need to be paying attention to before you can change your thoughts for real, for good, for life. It reminds me of when Dave and I built our house back in Illinois. I was so bored by how long the first part of the build went. Like every day we'd kind of get an update, go past where our house was going to be. And it was like, it's just another pile of dirt still, right? It was just stood there forever. Like first it was like, this big dirt hole is going to be here forever. And now it's a big cement hole forever. And then the framing, like when are they going to get to the fun stuff? I want to pick out light fixtures and countertops. I want to decorate this baby. But as we know, when it comes to building a house, it doesn't matter what your countertops look like, because if you don't have a solid foundation, first, your house is going to fall apart. And this is how I want you to think about mindset work, thought work, belief work. It's fantastic. Just like the surface level of the house is what you see, mindset work is what you see. But if your foundation isn't solid, it's going to keep falling apart. This is why we give up. This is why we quit. The foundation really is that nervous system regulation that I talked about in that part 2, and feeling your feelings instead of avoiding them and shutting down and numbing out, which I talked about in part 3. You need to listen to this whole series kind of in order. There's a reason why I'm doing it in the way that I am. So if you're just coming on today, you haven't listened to the first few parts of this series, go back, start there, and I will see you back here in a few minutes. But without a solid foundation, here's what happens in a house, right? If you don't have a solid foundation, or if you haven't built the frame to support the house, you're going to have to keep walking really carefully through your house, avoiding weak spots, trying not to fall through the floor, right? Without a solid foundation in your Calm AF self, you will have fragile happiness, right? Your Calm AFness will feel weak. Now, most people are operating from this place. They're trying to jump to the mindset without doing the foundational work. Everything is fine. I'm good, unless my husband pisses me off, or my kids have a bad day, or I'm sick of my job. And then all of it falls off the plate, right? Like all of the happiness goes away because it was all dependent on everything externally working well for me. Okay? If you aren't doing the foundational steps, the fundamental steps of the Calm AF process, you are going to be tiptoeing through your life. This fragileness will be the reason you continue to energy manage or people please. It will be the reason why you continue to feel like you need to push yourself, to prove yourself to everyone. And I want you to keep this in mind today as I teach you how to rewire your thoughts. Because while I do think we can be working on all of the parts of the system together, the mental, the physical, the energetic, you want to keep in the back of your mind that in order to rewire your thoughts for real, for good, for life, you must have a solid understanding of the stories that are in your backpack, the way your nervous system reacts when those stories come out, and how to soothe your nervous system so that you don't have to run away from your feelings, right? Without this, your thought rewiring will be fragile. Your Calm AF-ness will be dependent on being very careful that everything external looks good. Capiche? All right. So here's the first thing to know about thought rewiring. It is possible for almost every single human. Okay, there's very few exceptions. You are probably not the exception because you're listening to this podcast right now. Okay, not only is it possible, but it's exactly what the brain does. It's what it does if we don't let our other thoughts get in the way. So here's an example. Let's say you want to learn to play the violin. You have never, ever in your life picked up a violin, but you really want to learn it. So you will walk into this experience of learning this new skill, learning this new instrument with the thought, I'm going to learn how to play the violin. Simple thought, right? And you're going to know when you first start learning, you know that you are definitely not going to be good at it. It takes a lot of brain power. You have to manually think about everything you're doing, how to hold the violin, where to put your fingers, how to move the bow. It's a very manual process, lots of concentration. And when you first start playing the violin, it is reasonable. You are going to have a grace period for yourself to expect you're not going to be great at it at first. Now, overachievers have a hard time starting new things because they rarely try things they know they're not going to be good at right away. But even they can logically understand, hey, I'm learning a new skill. I'm going to have a lot of clunky wrong notes while I'm learning something new. Okay, so this is where you start. You're like, okay, I'm going to learn to play the violin. And then you start learning it and you practice. Every day you sit down, you practice scales, you play hot cross buns. And then one day you pick up the violin and scales and hot cross buns are super easy. It's almost automatic. It has moved from manually practicing to this automatic process. Okay? You aren't having to think as hard. You aren't having to really think at all for some things. Your brain has simply created the neural pathway because of the repetition, because you didn't get in the way of it. Okay? From there, you start learning harder pieces. The skills move from basic to more technical, and you're using a lot of brain power for new things, but it's not a big deal, right? Because this is how you know, you logically understand you're not personally attached to, I'm a bad person if I make mistakes in the violin. You just understand this is part of learning to play the violin. You practice, you hit a ton of wrong notes, you get frustrated, you throw the bow across the room, but then you come back and you're back at it. And before you know it, you're a violinist. You still are continued to be challenged by new music, by skills that are above where you are, but the day-to-day how to play a violin and where to put your fingers become automatic. This is how the brain works when you're learning how to play the violin. This is how the brain works when you're learning a new language, when you move to a new town and you have to learn all the new routes to all the new places. This is how the brain works for those things. And this is how the brain works when it comes to changing your thoughts. The process itself is literally the same. Introduce something new. It's manual. You practice it manually until the brain creates an automatic path. Boom, new neural pathway. The more you practice, the more hardwired it becomes. The difference is this. With the violin, if you practice enough, you can rewire your brain to become proficient at it. But when it comes to rewiring your own limiting thoughts and beliefs, when it comes to the shit you're carrying around in your trauma backpack, you're like, oh no, these are special unicorn thoughts. I can't use that process for this. I can't use the same process I used to learn how to play an instrument in rewiring my thoughts. These aren't able to be changed. These thoughts are just who I am. I must keep them with me always. Rewire my brain to learn a new instrument? Obviously. Rewire my brain to learn a different thought? Don't be silly. This is what I've always believed. This is who I am. And because of that, you're right. You know why you're right about it? Because you have spent decades practicing the thoughts in your backpack. You learned these beliefs that you carry around with you because of how repetitive these thoughts have been thought. Over and over and over every day, you think, I'm not good enough. Over and over, you think, no matter how hard I try, nothing ever works for me. Whatever your thought is. Okay, the thoughts you believe are hardwired, not because they're true, but because you've repeated them 37 bajillion times in your lifetime. Of course they're hardwired. If you want to create a new thought, a new mindset, a new belief, a new neural pathway, we're going to use the same exact process you learn how to learn any new skill. And here's amazing news. However strongly you have hardwired your bullshit backpack stories, that is equivalent to your level of expertise. You are already an expert at rewiring your thoughts. You're going to use the exact same process to believe supportive and loving thoughts about yourself as you did to believe all of these shit thoughts. The difference is you're going to do it with purpose this time. You're going to do it with intention. You're going to build the foundation to do it from a regulated nervous system so you can use your smart brain, your logical brain, to question the thoughts. Instead of just blindly believing the thoughts that people or society have offered you or the thoughts you've assumed about yourself, you're going to find thoughts that support who you're becoming, and you're going to practice those 37 bajillion times until they become the default path. If you want to rewire the thought, no matter what I do, nothing ever works out for me, because you're tired of nothing working out for you, you must find a new thought and practice it. Repeat that thought until it becomes hardwired. Now, you might be thinking right about now, I have tried that, Kristen. I have recited affirmations until my throat hurts. I have written, I am worthy, over and over again until my hand cramps up. It's not working. It hasn't worked for me. Of course not. Of course not. Because you didn't lay the foundation. If you keep jumping to try to hurry up and change a thought without doing the foundational work, without debunking the thought, without feeling the feelings, without regulating the nervous system, your thoughts were going to stay in your head only. We need to move those thoughts from trying to believe them in your head to believing them in your body. You can't just pretend. That's often what we're doing with affirmations. Your brain is like, please, please believe this. And your body's like, sure, Jan, you're worthy. Okay. Right? This is where we create fragile happiness. If you want to change a belief, you've got to get your body on board. And here's how you do that: by unlearning the story, by poking holes in it, by debunking it. The way your brain works now is that it's always looking to prove what's already in your brain. What you have to do is use your internal Google search engine, aka your brain, and intentionally ask it to find reasons why this story, this thought, this belief might not be true. If the thought is, no matter how hard I try, things don't work out the way I want them to, ask yourself, could I prove this? Is it really true? Is it a fact? Do I have to believe this thought? If I took this to court, would I win? And 99% of the time, the answer is no. You are just blindly believing thoughts that aren't true. When you intentionally ask your brain to find things that have worked for you, you will find them. And once you start finding the holes in your story, your body won't just automatically call bullshit because you won't be asking it to believe something that's not true. And the more you debunk the old thoughts, the more your old story will feel untrue to your body. This is how you change the default settings from spending most of your time feeling anxious or shut down, and occasionally you slip into that calm AF energy. This is how you change it to spending most of your time feeling that calm AF energy with the occasional slip into anxious or shut down or whatever. Right? Once you've poked some holes in the story, you have opened a portal to possibility. If I don't have to believe these thoughts anymore, what does that mean could be true? And that leads to the second step in the rewire process, which is remembering who the fuck you are without the stories in your little trauma backpack. What if I was a person that things did work out for? Since I know there's some truth there, I've already asked my brain to find it. It found evidence that things do sometimes work out for me. That could actually be who I am. Since I've got this evidence of how I am a good person and not a broken shell of a human, what would the version of me who believes that walk around thinking? Remembering is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world to walk through with my clients, because what happens is their soul light, the light of their soul, begins to break through, begins to shine through the holes we just poked in the stories. And they see it. They see it for the first time in a long time, or maybe ever. They get to see what I can see so clearly, is that they are a gorgeous, beautiful, shiny, worthy, gorgeous, sparkly soul with a human brain and a nervous system carrying a backpack full of bullshit stories. One of my favorite workshops that I teach is the Future Calm AF Self Workshop, because this is where my clients align for real with who they really are. It's the most beautiful thing. When you are aligned with your Calm AF self, you will learn the way this version of you exists in the world. You will think about, how does the Calm AF self think? How do I handle conflict? How do I set boundaries? How do I dress? What do I spend my time doing? What do I spend my time not doing? Who do I hang around with? Who do I not hang around with? And very importantly, how does this version of me think during the day in any given moment? Okay? Because now you've got your Calm AF self thoughts, because you have tapped into your Calm AF self. And to override your protective self-thoughts, this is where we move to step 3, which is the actual rewiring of the thoughts, the repetition. Okay? Having these thoughts in the front of your mind every day, many times a day, is how they will become hardwired. But not the way you're used to trying to change thoughts, white knuckling in your brain, right? This is different this time, because now your body's on board, because you've done the unlearning, the foundational work. So that repetition that you're doing is actually sinking down into your subconscious. It's not just what you're trying to think up in your head. You are embodying the thoughts. They are becoming who you are. And that is the 4th stage of this rewire process. It's the integration, or the embodying of the new thought. Okay, the last thing I want you to hear before we are done today. Just because you've embodied a new belief, where you've worked through, you've done the unlearning, the remembering, and the rewiring, and the embodying, just because you've gotten through this with a thought does not mean that old backpack story has been erased from your mind, right? Just because you build a new road doesn't mean the old road disappears. That neural pathway will always be available, because, not because it's a pain in the ass, because those thoughts did create safety for you at one point. That's why your body believed them and held on to them. Believing something like, I'm too sensitive, probably did protect you from being judged or ridiculed or punished when you were a child, so your body just has held it for a rule forever. But now that you know that being sensitive isn't a flaw, it's a superpower, you can understand that the only reason you were ever handed that story in the first place is because your parent had no ability to self-regulate their nervous system. So they needed you to hold in your feelings, right? And once you know that, you can believe something new, but the old story will remain. And it's important to know that, because it will show up again. Even though you have hardwired something new, it will show up when you're tired, when you're super stressed, when you're going through something really difficult, when you're sick. Anytime you are a little under the weather or under pressure or whatever, your brain likely will pull you back to an old neural pathway out of habit because it's familiar. Not because your brain is an asshole, not because you don't have strong enough willpower or you didn't hardwire it well enough. It's just your efficient nervous system doing what your efficient nervous system is supposed to do. All right. That is how you actually rewire a thought for real, for good, for life. Now, obviously in Calm AF Life, in the course, we will be going way deeper into this process, along with all the other concepts I'm teaching in this series, right? The thought modules are especially robust. Like in the workbook pages, you get pages and pages of practice sheets, not to mention opportunities to get coached on your thoughts by me when we have those accountability calls. Okay, link to join that is in the show notes. I hope you're enjoying this series. I've heard from so many of you who are just loving it. I am loving teaching it. I am super excited for next week's episode. Don't miss it. I know we're getting right up to Thanksgiving, but it's such a great one. And there might even be some bonus ones coming up. So make sure you are tuned right back in here. I love you so much. I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. And before you go, one more thing. So as you know, I am slightly obsessed with helping as many humans tap into their calm AFness as possible. So if this podcast has helped you, would you please leave a review, make sure you're subscribed, and share it with your friends. Also, make sure you head on over to KristenFinch.com to see how you can work with me. You can sign up for my emails and get any other goodies I have available. Until next week, I love you so much. I am so grateful that you're here. I'll see you next time.